Hi, it's Jane from My Bobbin, and I've got a video today on the Polaris Block, which is block 9 of the Moda Blockeads 6. It's designed by Barb's Groves from me and my sister Designs. And it's interesting because it's a paper piece block, and I'm not a great fan of paper piecing. So I'm going to show you how to do it paper pieced, and I'm going to show you another method doing it. You won't need any special rulers. I just use my 6.5 for most things, so I'll use it for that. But it's just a different way to do it if you don't want to use paper piecing now. So let's get started on the block. So cut the templates out and make sure when you print them that they are the correct size. So just check that that measurement is 3.5 inches. Before we do anything, we're gonna, the dark line there, we want to get the template folded first of all on the 2 stitch lines. So just fold that on the ruler, and then I just press it down with my thumb. And do the same for this other dark line. So then we take the B fabric, one of those squares, and lay that right side down onto your cutting mat, and your template is right side up facing you. Okay, and you can just pin that so it doesn't slip. Or some people use a dab of glue. I'm just going to pin. We want to make sure that this dark outside line, that there's fabric that overhangs all the way around, which there is. Now, the number 2 triangle, you're going to fold that back on that fold line. Take your ruler, and you need to leave a 1/4 inch seam. So run that 1/4 inch line down the fold, and then just cut. Now leave this folded back, and then take one of your A rectangles and lay it underneath, but we want right sides together. So we've still got that facing down and this one facing up. And this fabric underneath needs to cover all of this. You can see the dark line there. We need to make sure that that is all covered. You could adjust. The simplest way, I think, is just to lay it like that. Okay, and you can see here, if you look at the dark line showing through, we can see that there's the A fabric all the way around. And I've just lined those lines up there because I find that easier. Now, keeping that together, unfold that and then pin through both pieces of fabric. And then on your machine, shorten your stitch. I'm going to put mine down to 1.5, and then we're going to sew down this stitch, this line here. Okay, so we've sewn down there, and it says to backstitch at the start and end, which I admit I forgot to do, but I'm not overly worried. Those seams are going to be covered. So unpin and unfold this to just double check that it's accurate. Okay, so fold this one back, and again I just press that with my thumb. Check that it is covering everything. Now this piece here is actually out of the block line, so this is covering everything. Right, now we're just going to do the same to the other side. So we're going to fold this number 3 side, we're going to fold that down and press it. Then we put the 1/4 inch line on the fold, and I'm going to have to turn that this way to be able to cut it, and then trim that. And now take another rectangle of A, put it on the bottom. Again. Okay, so I've just pinned that piece together. I can see by checking this line here and where that white fabric is, that it's all within this area. So now I'm going to open that again, and I'm just going to stitch down here on that black line. All right, so we've sewn down that line, then turn it over, unfold it, press it down, and make sure that it's covering the whole square, which it is. The papers don't get removed yet, but we need to trim this block, and we're going to use that dark line. I actually have a whole quilt pattern that I want to make that is entirely paper pieced. It's the Emperor's Wheel, made from old kimono fabrics. So as much as paper piecing isn't my thing, I'm going to have to learn to like it to get that quilt done. And also, I think it's always good just to try new things. That is one of the things I like about Moda Blockheads and other quilt alongs, is it gets you to try new things, and that's going to build your confidence in using lots of techniques. Okay, so there's the block. That's the first square. It's done. It does give you beautiful points, and then we're going to leave those papers in until the end when we pull them all out. So that's the first way. That's the way they demonstrate to make the blocks, and you need to make 4 of those. I'm going to show you another way to make them. Now, a different way to do it is to use these as a template, and you can see on this has got the 1/4 inch seam allowed around the outside, but we need to add here. So I put a little mark on each place where I need to add a 1/4 inch seam. Now, I made one up earlier doing this, and it was a little bit under the 3.5. So what I'm going to suggest is that you make this a 1/2 inch, just to ensure that you have enough to cover. So let's do it and see. So the other thing is, if you're doing it this way, I would not cut the squares and all the pieces. I would just cut the pieces from a piece of fabric, because you just have less wastage. So cut a piece of this, and I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch on the sides. And then I'll cut it down. Okay, now I'm going to join them with a 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to cut it down to 3.5 inch block. Now we're going to join this, and this is where you need to make sure you've got that crossover. You've got enough distance here for your seam, so it needs to be a good 1/4 inch coverage. Right, so we have this one was made using this as a template and adding a 1/2 inch there, and this one has the paper. When you have them all made, then you go ahead and you take the paper out, which we won't do yet. Now I'm going to go and make the rest of these squares, and then we'll move on to the next part of the block. All right, step 2. You take the 2 inch A squares, and on the back draw a line from corner to corner. Then take the C square, and we're just going to pin this. Just pin the 2 to opposite corners. So the lines are going that way, and that way we're going to sew just to the outside side next to that drawn line. I'm just going to I'm going to cut them off. You can cut them whichever way you like at a 1/4 inch. And then press that one out. And now we're going to place these ones on that corner. Okay, and again, just sew to the outside line, just next to the line. trim again 1/4 inch seam. And then just press those corners out. I will hit that with an iron in a moment. And then I just need to trim this block to 3.5 inches. So remove these papers from the paper piece block if you've paper pieced them. I just hold the seams down underneath and pull away. Okay, so there's our block, but I did see a variation, so I just want to show you that in case you want to use it. With that variation, you cut a 2-inch square. This is from the Facebook group, and I saw some really beautiful blocks there. And you would take that 2-inch square, okay, and attach to each of these. And again, you're going to do the same thing, draw from corner to corner. So you can draw it or you can just sew it if you're confident you're a straight sewer. So we're going to take our other 2-inch square and put it on this side. Now I haven't drawn lines, but basically we're doing the same thing. Line drawn from corner to corner, and we sew just to the outside side of that line. I'm going to do that with each of these 4 blocks, and it's going to create a really pretty star effect. And there's some really beautiful ones in the Facebook group if you're not in it. You see some lovely blocks over there. So I'm not sure who to give credit to for it, but that's where the idea came from. Okay, and then cut them 1/4 inch. So I've pressed those. I'm going to just trim them now again to 3.5 and then put the block together. Alright, so that's my finished blocks with a bit of a variation. And now I'm just going to join it together and then show you the final block. Now just before I finish, I want to talk about the next week's block, which is block 10. I'm not going to make a video on that because I'm quite behind on my videos after having a couple of weeks away. But this block here, you can see that essentially it's the same block. It's the same block. It's the same method. Okay. And then these are just half square triangles. Now you can make them. There's 3 or 4 different ways to make them. And then the center is also very simple. So this is my block 9 Polaris, but I have got added this little star in the center, so you can make it without that, the way the pattern is, or you can make it with the star. It's quite simple if you want to do that. So thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. If it was, leave me a comment, share, like. I appreciate all the comments that people leave. It means a lot. Thank you. Bye.